Hey, it's Cameron from Met at the Movies again. Now that we've gotten all the negativity out of the way, I want to get to my favorite films of the year. As I said, a lot of my ratings kinda leaned a little bit more positively this year. Ever since 2020 put us in a weird slump of movies, I feel like we've kind of been trying to climb out of it ever since. So this year that I leaned a little bit more positively makes me think I think we're on a little bit of an upswing. Once again, the typical disclaimer, this is just my opinion. These aren't necessarily the best films of the year, just the ones that I liked the most. And because it's the best list, I honestly don't have as much to say as I do about the worst list. Have you ever noticed that it's a lot easier to talk longer about bad things than it is about good things? It's kind of sad, actually. I actually have quite a few honorable mentions, to the point that I honestly could almost make an entirely second list out of these. But let's get to those. Nefarious. This is a film that I'm actually really glad made it to theaters, and I did recommend it to people, even though I will admit I don't think the film's great. It is very interesting and honestly impressive considering 2/3 of it is mainly just two guys in a room talking. I also think it raises some interesting questions and beliefs. It's not perfect, and it will be making my list of films that I wish had ended just 1 minute sooner, but I still think it's worth at least one viewing. Polite Society. Honestly, if I just revisited this film, there's a chance it would make the list. I do recall some character decisions that kind of annoyed me in the film, and that might have dampened my opinion of it at the time. But man, I loved this movie's filmmaking, style, and just overall delivery. I want to see more films like this. Trolls Band Together. No, I'm serious. This is actually probably the best Trolls movie out of the three, which critics and audiences have never really been in agreement on. And while gushing about the animation of a DreamWorks movie may seem redundant at this point, seriously, the textures in this film. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. As far as overly frank movies tackling the subject of girls going through puberty, I will take this over Turning Red any day. It's just a sweet, honest movie. One fond memory I have of this year was going to this movie about prepubescent girls and seeing the audience full of mostly women in their 60s who grew up with the original book. The Hiding Place. This was honestly one of the best things I saw in theaters this year. But it is the filming of a stage production, so I decided I'm not going to count that for this list. It is still great storytelling about real people that did something very brave at one of the world's darkest times. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Once again, not going to include it because it is a filming of a stage adaptation. However, this was my favorite feature-length film at the We Regret to Inform You Film Festival. Even if you're just sick to death of Christmas Carol adaptations, I think this one-man show is impressive enough that it breathes kind of some new life into it. Mark Cabas gives a great tour de force performance, and on top of that, the technical crew is on point as well. It might not be likely you'll get a chance to see this, but if you do, don't pass it up. A Sound of Freedom. I don't know if I think this is a great film, but it's definitely a good film, and one that will always have my respect for being as bold as it is to tackle a subject like this. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Please don't hate me for not putting this on my list. Much like the first one, I'm just gonna always feel a little out of my depth talking about this film, especially amongst all the praise it gets. But yes, it is a great film. And honestly, the things that throw me off about it are mainly personal. Namely that I was apparently the only person in America who didn't know this was a part 1 when I went to see it. So I'm sitting in theaters with my friend like, oh wow, so now we're really ramping up for the final act. Dang, is this film like another 40 minutes longer? What? Godzilla Minus One. Kind of like Spider-Verse, I feel a little out of depth putting this film in a list. And like many people, I don't think I had any intention on going to see it until I heard everyone saying, no, seriously, it's like really good. And yeah, it is. For a Godzilla film that gives humans the main focus, their story is pretty emotional. And Godzilla as a straight-up antagonist is certifiably scary. And pretty entertaining action sequences too. Missing. I loved Searching when it came out, and I'm so glad that they did a follow-up with this. I'm a sucker for a good mystery, and I'm liking this delivery a lot. I'm hoping we get more movies like this. Alright, now with those out of the way, out of the 118 films I saw this year, these are my top 10 favorite films of 2023. Number 10. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Okay, Guy Ritchie, you have my blessing again. 3 or 4 years ago, he had The Gentleman, and that was good. Then he made Wrath of Man, which made my top 5 worst of the years back in 2021. Earlier this year, he made Operation Fortune, which was perfectly forgettable. And then he made this, which was pretty darn good. Just a very raw driving force in this movie. A lot of the in-the-moment danger feels very palpable. You just really want to see these people make it out. And knowing that this is based on something real also just kind of drives it up even more. Very well made. Number 9. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Admittedly, the bar was set kinda low after the 2000s Dungeons & Dragons movie, but I think this movie made the smart decision of being an action comedy that just has a lot of heart to it. The four leads play their parts well and also play off of each other very well. The story is one that I think pays respect to D&D fans, but also can just satisfy fans of fantasy in general. I'm actually really sad that this one didn't make more at the box office. Number 8, The Blind. I never really watched Duck Dynasty prior to this, so I can't really say that there was an incentive for me to see this film and find out the backstory to how this family came to be, but I am really glad I saw this film. I think I just appreciate the honesty and vulnerability it has in showing where this guy came from and how he started off. In a lot of ways, I think this film was just a better version of The Hill, which also came out this year. Of the two, I definitely prefer this one. Number 7, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. It's kind of interesting that Into the Spider-Verse really popularized this art style back in 2018. Last year I saw it used to good effect in both The Bad Guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and while I am worried about the eventual film we'll probably get that uses this to a not-so-good effect, I can rest assured that Mutant Mayhem used it good. I think my two favorite things about this film is that, one, these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles feel like real teenagers here. I really buy it here in ways that I never really did in the past. They also don't all just blend together, they all have their very distinct personalities. And 2, I love the familial connection in this film. You really feel the brotherly bond amongst them and just the camaraderie of it all. But also, I like how Splinter feels like a father in this version and not just a mentor. I like that they made these choices for this adaptation. Plus also, it's just a fun movie. Number 6, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think most people were in agreement that this is the best thing the MCU has done since Spider-Man No Way Home. Part of that is, yes, because the MCU has hit a bit of a low point right now, but it's hard to deny that this film is, in fact, very good. Finding out about Rocket's past was interesting, even if it did come with the inevitable heartbreak. But more than that, I think this film is a great example of a movie that didn't really give me what I was wanting, but still gave me a very satisfying conclusion to a pretty solid trilogy throughout. Number 5. You Hurt My Feeling. This film kind of went under the radar, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just hadn't even heard of this one. In a lot of ways, this really isn't a film that I should have liked as much as I did. Much like my number 1 pick for Worst of the Year, Moving On, I was initially kind of worried that this film didn't seem to have a whole lot of momentum at first. But I think one of the things that made me love this film was just how wonderfully imperfect everyone is. There's no wise character that has it all figured out. Everyone is trying to do the right thing, and you see the good intent in what everyone is doing, even if the decisions they may make aren't the right ones in the end. I honestly find that really comforting to see. Also, unlike Moving On, I did laugh a lot with this one. A lot of chuckles and smiles throughout this film. Number 4, Megan. First movie I saw this year, and what a great start it was. And actually, to be honest, while I did like this movie, I was initially surprised by just how great the reviews were. But honestly, the more I looked at this film, the more I just realized how fine-tuned it is. The script is, of course, very good, but it's the kind of script that I think could have gone so bad if not given to a good director or production crew. But everyone seemed on top of their game and on the same page with this film. And what you get is a film that walks that very fine line with its scares and silliness at the same time. The kind of scenes that make you go, I think I also appreciate that while throughout the entire film it's kind of satirizing how dependent we are on technology and screen time, it's mixed in enough that I don't feel talked down to. With countless movies over the last couple years that make me feel like I'm being taught a lesson, this one never made me feel preached at. That's another fine line to walk. Number 3, Asteroid City. Yeah, I'm a Wes Anderson fan, so this might have been predictable, and I've already seen other people put this on their worst of the year's list because it's just another Wes Anderson film. But it's another great Wes Anderson film. I can't stand Rushmore. He once again sets his films in very unique locations that honestly seem primed for interesting stories, and then fills them with varied characters that also feel very linked together, and then still manages to throw us for some loops at the climax. This is just one of his films where he's just in proper form again. He just manages to make worlds that I want to live in. If God, time, and space would allow it, I would want Wes Anderson to direct my life. Number 2, A Haunting in Venice. Death on the Nile topped my list last year, and I'm so happy that we got another follow-up. I've said it before, I love a good whodunit. And I feel like my problem with a lot of modern whodunits is they almost feel like they have a disdain for how things used to be with them, and they feel like they have to make things different than how they were in the past. But I kind of just love that this film just embraces the old-fashioned style, and adds a bit of a spookier tone to it as well. Kenneth Branagh is back again as the leading man and in the director's chair, and as usual, does a great job at both. He assembles a great cast that are all on their A-game, and the always great cinematography of Haris Zamberlokos. Really hope I didn't butcher that too bad. I am a little surprised that this is the one that's getting the best reviews of the three, but honestly, if it means we get an Agatha Christie extended universe and eventually a Miss Marple crossover, I'm not going to question it too much. Number 1. The Holdovers. Honestly, so many times I saw movies where I loved the premise or I loved what the trailers were promising, and then they just didn't deliver in the way that I was kind of hoping. Holdovers was probably one of my most anticipated films of the year, and it did not disappoint at all. It thoroughly pleased me. I love the retro style of the time period, even to the point that the trailer feels like a throwback. The three leads are great. It feels like it's got just the right amount of comedy and drama mixed together.
Thought all the Nazis were hiding in Argentina.
Stifle it, Tully.
I love getting to know these characters and just finding out why each one of them is the way that they are. I just really felt for this kid and his situation, and predictably I started to feel for the teacher's character as well. In the past, my lists have also included movies of unlikely pairings of friendship that just sort of end up working. I don't even know if all those reasons do it justice for me. And I'm really surprised to see that this is David Hemingson's first credit as a screenwriter for film. After this, I really hope he continues. And that was my top 10 favorite films of 2023. What were some of your favorites? What were some of your least favorites? Were some of your least favorites my favorites? Or your favorites my least favorites? Either way, I'm kind of hoping we continue on this upward trajectory throughout 2024, but what do you think? What are some of your highly anticipated films of the year? If you want to see more of this, you can follow me on my Facebook page with Met at the Movies, where I give you my thoughts and opinions on films throughout the year. Thanks for watching.